Hello and welcome to Protists. So let's get into it. What is this picture? Well, this is the phylogenetic tree I've been showing you, but I put a white blob on everything that isn't a protist. And so protists, again, are everything else, right? And in different phylogenetic trees, different phyla are labeled. There are many phyla of protists. All of these shown here have members that are human pathogens, or are super cool, like the slime molds. So there's not much else to say about protists. I'll show you some protist diseases in Unit 4, and there are quite a few that we will skip, unfortunately. But some major protists that you might have heard of, Giardia lamblia causes an intestinal infection and diarrhea that has a horrific odor. And then malaria is caused by a protist. Some other big ones, the African sleeping sicknesses and Chagas disease. Those are some horrifying, truly horrifying diseases caused by some protists. So let's look at a phylogenetic tree of eukaryotes. This is a phylogenetic tree of eukaryotes. You don't have to memorize this tree. You won't see it on any tests. But what I've done is label a few different phyla that have been labeled for you. So the fungi, these are the major fungal phyla. Back when I learned about them, there were 5. I guess there are 6 now. That happens because the phylogeny of eukaryotes is challenging to learn. Like in this tree, these little arrows refer to the possible places where this tree should have a root. And dotted lines refer to places where the phylogeny is difficult to determine. They're not sure whether this should connect here or here. This, should it connect here or here? They don't know. So this is always an active area of research. Still, the eukaryotes do have a lot of diversity in our kingdom. So the animals are here, bilateria. So we have symmetry, left-right symmetry. That's us. Porifera would be like the sponges that have less symmetry. I don't know exactly. I forget. It's been a long time. Anyway, so if we look up here, plants, and then the fungi are right next to the animals. And then here are some groups of, what do we call it? Protists. So the parabacillids include trichomonas, which causes a sexually transmitted infection in humans. Kinedoplastids involve the trypanosomes that causes sleeping sicknesses. And then Giardia is from the diplomonads. Malaria is from the apicomplexa. And those are human diseases. A disease of crops that has caused massive crop failures that have led to huge migrations of people include late blight, which is a disease of potatoes, and that's caused by an oomycete, or oomycete, I should say, which is just another protist. So this tree looks very different from the one I've been showing you. This is not made with ribosomal RNA. This is made with lots of different genes that eukaryotes have that they could use to compare them to each other. And one thing to note in this tree is that the fungi and the animals are close together, but they're not close with the plants. So if you just look at ribosomal RNA, the plants, the fungi, and the animals are all together. But if you look at many different genes, and if the tree is made by an expert in eukaryotes, you get something that is not really, doesn't group the 3 of us together. Okay. And then the last thing from this video is helminths. They are small animals. They have macroscopic and microscopic life stages. So here they are with us. And there are really 2 groups that we think about, the flatworms and the roundworms. it's helminths are pathogens quite often, and so we group them sort of by how they get around the body. Do they live in the intestines, or do they migrate to other organs? So they can be called intestinal or tissue nematodes. And then the flatworms are split into the flukes, which invade certain organs and are named after those, and then the tapeworms. So nematodes and platyhelminths are what you should remember. And then trematodes and cestodes are the names for flukes and tapeworms. They are complex and disgusting. So this would be an example of a tapeworm taken from a patient. It can be very long, but remember, when the person first ate the thing that gave rise to this, it was microscopic. So a microscopic tapeworm cyst inside meat. And then there are others that are little worms we eat. Helminths are common everywhere in the world, but in many cases, if we don't have a lot of exposure to soil or water outside, we don't have a lot of exposure to helminths. So they seem rare if we live in big apartment buildings and don't go outside. But yeah, if you have a kid who plays in dirt and eats dirt, sooner or later they're probably going to get a helminth, like pinworm. Google that. It's entertaining and horrific at the same time. And what else? Our immune system, including eosinophils and IgE, are really there to protect us from helminths. And when we don't have helminthic infections, those parts of our immune systems seem to go haywire and cause diseases like allergies and autoimmunity. That's a widely believed hypothesis that hasn't really been tested experimentally. But one reason we bring this up is that a person who comes into your clinic with common symptoms and signs of many different diseases, like what do they have? Well, one thing that tells you it's caused by a helminth is elevated IgE and eosinophils. So these you could just see in a blood smear. These you'd have to test for with some kind of, I don't know what, high-tech something. Many helminths make cysts, so they make some tough structure. They transform into some tough structure that is a long-term dormant structure, that some of them will go into the environment and they'll live like that in the soil. Some of them will invade a tissue in their host and then encyst in the muscle, like what we see in the lab. You would have seen trichinella in a pig muscle, and that's a cyst. And that's all I have to say about helminths. So if you want to talk about helminthic diseases, we can do that outside of class, but we're not going to get into them this term. Okay, so the next video is going to be about Unit 4, and I highly recommend you check that out now, just to see what's coming on the horizon, so that you can plan for it now, which could help you later.